Podcast.
Touchdown Ram! Recovered by the Chargers. Touchdown UCLA!
With USC great and NFL stud, Frosty Rucker.
The Trojans back in front!
And LAFB founder Ryan Dyrud on the Believe Podcast Network and LAFBnetwork.com. This is your destination for Los Angeles football.
What's going on, Los Angeles? Welcome into the LA Football Show. I'm your host, Ryan Dyrud, on a beautiful Wednesday in LA, Pasadena specifically. Happy to be joining you after a long weekend in Las Vegas. Hopefully you're able to check out some of our draft coverage, over 13 hours of live streaming during the draft and other stuff while we were out there. Had a blast with the LAFB crew. Ton of fun, obviously, a lot of content, a lot of stuff to talk about with the Rams and Chargers, and also, Trojans and Bruins that got drafted. So hats off to all those kids. As predicted, I'll just throw this out there, pat myself on the back, if I may. I was bullish that Drake London, I had no doubt that he would be the number one wide receiver taken. And sure enough, he goes number 8 to the Atlanta Falcons. Hopefully he can thrive out there. Outside of Kyle Pitts, he is really the only receiving threat. So he will be wide receiver 1 from day one. So he's wide receiver 1 with the Trojans, wide receiver 1 in the draft, and he will be wide receiver 1 for the Falcons right off the bat. So, stoked for him. Hopefully that goes well. Hopefully, at least he proved at USC that he's kind of quarterback proof. Because as Slovis kind of declined through his tenure there, his numbers still went up. So I think even though Marcus Mariota is running the show in Atlanta currently, I don't think that'll hurt Drake London too much. So, but yeah, today we're just going to, I'm not going to get too crazy deep in detail or keep this long, but I do want to go through, since I haven't done my personal show here in a minute, just each of the Rams and the Chargers draft picks. Kind of give my thoughts on them. Again, it's not going to be super in depth, but I want to go through each one, give my thoughts, kind of grade a little bit how I thought they did. By the way, I think both teams did very well. I know I'm a glass half full guy, but I just think they both drafted well, and I'll get into why. Today's show brought to you by our friends at Bet Online. Tons of sports going on. I know the NBA playoffs are going on, but I'm a hockey guy. I don't know if any of you guys listening, guys and gals listening, are hockey fans. If you're not, check out the NHL playoffs. I mean, I'm obviously a football guy. I love the NFL playoffs, and this year was killer playoff action. But NHL playoffs are they're the best. I mean, you can just feel it, something about it. Like, I know people love the NBA playoffs. I like it better than regular season, obviously, but I'm just not a huge NBA guy. NHL playoffs are great. So your Kings, your LA Kings, are in the playoffs again after a hiatus for a little while, and they took game 1 from Edmonton. They play again tonight, I believe, Wednesday, game 2. So for you LA fans, Rams have been at the Kings games. You gotta rep the Kings here. No Lakers or Clippers in the playoffs. Rep the Kings and go to betonline.ag. You can bet on the Kings. Betting hockey is actually a lot of fun. Use our promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV. You get a 50% welcome bonus on your first time deposit. That's free money. Got to use it. BetOnline.ag, mobile device, desktop, whatever you prefer. Promo code BLEAV, 50% welcome bonus. Tell them the crew at LAFB sent you. All right. So I think we're just going to dive right in. I can't remember if there was something else I wanted to kind of touch on here prior to getting into our draft stuff. We've got some fun stuff planned for the LA Football Network here in the coming months. I know it's the off season, real off season now. I mean, it's because, after the Super Bowl, it's like, okay, it's the off season. We got free agency coming up. You have the draft coming up. Well, now it's like, we got nothing till training camp. I know there's OTAs and mini camp, but, and obviously we'll cover that, but we got some fun stuff, off season stuff. I'll just tease this. We're going to do a, probably in July, we're still working out details, but Rams fans out there, we're going to do a victory pub crawl, a Super Bowl victory pub crawl in LA, just to kind of bring everyone together and celebrate one more time the Super Bowl win before the season starts. So we're going to do that in July, kind of before training camp begins. So stay tuned for details on that. Should be a blast. I mean, if we can get 30 to 40 Rams fans out, just cruising the streets, having some beers, and hopefully we'll get some drink specials. We'll have some games going at these different locations. We'll be doing that with the Rams brothers, who are right here on the LA Football Network, along with our other our other contributors and whatnot. So stay tuned for that. Chargers, we are also going to be doing a couple events. We are, I think, partnering with I believe Dan is kind of heading this up, Dan from Charters Unleashed, but I believe we're going to be partnering with Die Hard Bolt Club to do an event with them, a live show, and maybe some giveaways, some autographs, stuff like that. So just stay tuned. We got some fun announcements coming up right here on the LA Football Network. But let's get into the draft. So we're going to start with the Rams, just because I want to. I'm going to start with the Rams, and had to wait a while. Had to wait till very late in day 2 to make their first selection. It's crazy how long the third round is now with all the comp picks, because you had the Chargers pick, I want to say it was like 78, and the Rams pick was 104, and the Chargers weren't at the beginning, like the top 10 of the third round. They had to wait a while. So it's like it's like 50 picks in the third round now, which is wild with all the comp picks. So Rams had to wait a while to 104. And I thought it was funny for those that haven't seen the video. They were doing a press conference on day 1 because they had no picks day 1, and they were doing some press conference with media, Les Snead and Sean McVay. And while they were doing it, the Patriots, who always draft very interesting. I know Bill Belichick's one of the greatest coaches of all time, but I wouldn't call him a great drafter overall, at least in recent years. They took Cole Strange in the first round out of Chattanooga, and Les Snead was talking, and McVay all of a sudden goes out of nowhere, "Oh, Cole Strange just went," and made the joke like, we thought we had a chance for him in the third. I guess we wasted all of our time. Here he goes in the first round. So I thought that was funny, but it kind of tipped their hand a little bit that they were obviously really looking at offensive line, which all of us fans had been saying probably for multiple years. But their biggest need in the draft over the last couple seasons has been middle linebacker and offensive line. And they've continued to kind of not really, I mean, obviously, what was it, 3 years ago, they went heavy offensive line with Bobby Evans, David Edwards, Trevin Ingram, obviously all late picks, but that's how they draft anyway. But last year, it seemed like they were going to add some for depth, didn't address it, didn't go any of the centers. And obviously, I think it worked out okay with Brian Allen, and obviously he has an extension now. And then they get Bobby Wagner. So it's like that shores up linebacker because they took Ernest Jones last year. So they did fill that need, and he turned out to be, I think, fantastic. I think a lot of fans love Ernest Jones, and the ceiling on him is really high. And then you get Bobby Wagner, so you're set there. So now really going into this draft, the two biggest needs were O-line. You lose Austin Corbett. And so as of right now, that's kind of, or not right now, but as of pre-draft, it was basically, okay, is it going to be Coleman Shelton, Tremaine Ingram? It was kind of a battle for that right guard spot. Right guard, left guard. Right guard. I think David Edwards left guard. Or Bobby Evans, had played there a little bit, but he looked like his play has been diminishing over the last year. So that was like the biggest question mark. And then corner. Lose Darius Williams. You missed out on kind of Stephon Gilmore. You don't sign any of the lesser tier names. So you're kind of rolling with Jalen Ramsey and then Robert Rochelle, second-year guy who had some injury. David Long Jr. It's kind of how you're rolling. Terrell Burgess can play nickel. So those are the two biggest needs going into the draft. And so we head into the third round, and they take a kid, Logan Bruss, out of Wisconsin. Played, I believe, 1 season with David Edwards, so some familiarity there. Had played tackle and guard, so the versatility is there. Which nowadays, the offensive line, it's like you have to have versatility. It's very rare that you get a 4-year starting left tackle out of college. Like most, obviously it happens, but most of the time it's someone starts at guard their freshman, sophomore season and then slides over to tackle or vice versa. Logan Bruss, no different. So this is just from the team site. I'll read a couple things about him, give my reaction. Finalist for the 2016 Joe Thomas Award, which was given to the top high school offensive lineman in Wisconsin. Love that. Started 6 games, 3 at tackle, and 3 as a blocking tight end as a redshirt freshman. So obviously put on some weight after this. Switch positions in 29, 12 starts at right tackle, 1 at right guard, and in 2020, 1 at right tackle, 5 at right guard. He was third team All Big Ten that year, and then second team All League selection this past season in 2021, starting 9 games at right tackle. So, drafted, played tackle, drafted as a guard, similar to David Edwards. David Edwards was a tackle, so was Bobby Evans, but drafted presumably as a guard in the NFL. And he'll have a shot right off the bat to start this season as a rookie. Love this pick. You get the Wisconsin pedigree, which is huge. I think I've talked on this show, but also I've been a guest on some shows. I was on Charters Unleashed yesterday, and there's always this saying, which I agree with for the most part, draft the player, not the helmet. And, especially specifically with quarterbacks. And I know last year a lot that was referring to Justin Fields coming out of Ohio State, where Ohio State really hasn't had much success in the quarterback position at the next level. But many people were like, you draft Justin Fields for Justin Fields, not with the worry that he's coming from Ohio State. That's to be determined. Didn't play very good last year, but I think the kid still has talent, but that's besides the point. But when you come to offensive linemen, yes, Logan Bruss is a great player, great size, love all that. But I think it helps that Wisconsin pedigree. I mean, if you draft linemen from Wisconsin, from Iowa, those Big Ten schools, Michigan, Ohio State, like typically those guys have a good track record, no matter what round they're taking. I mean, Corey Linsley might be the best center in all of football with the Chargers now, and he was a 5th-round pick out of Ohio State. We can go through the history of Michigan offensive linemen, Iowa, and obviously Wisconsin. So that was an instance where, yes, you're drafting the player, but the pedigree of Wisconsin doesn't hurt. Love this pick. I think it was a slam dunk, filled a definite need, whereas in the past, the Rams have really kind of drafted not necessarily for need, just kind of gone BPA or a want, right? They took Tutu Atwell last year in the 2nd round as their first pick. When they had Deshaun Jackson signed, wasn't really a need. I had a feeling they were going to go juice because they talked about wanting to throw the deep ball. Didn't get to really use Tutu because he got hurt. I'm actually really excited to see. I love seeing players prove people wrong, and he's kind of been written off already. So I hope he really comes out this offseason and in the training camp and can prove people and be that true deep threat that he was drafted for. Because his tape at Louisville was a lot of fun. I did a whole you can find it on our YouTube page. I did an entire film breakdown of his time at Louisville, and he was a fun player at Louisville. And if he can stay healthy, put on maybe a little bit more weight to alleviate that, he can be fun in this offense. So I'm just saying, I'm getting off topic, but don't count Tutu out. Maybe we'll see a breakout this year from him. All right. I'm probably going to spend way too much time on each pick, as I do always when I start talking. We get to round 4 now. So the Rams' next selection, Jacoby Durant out of South Carolina State. Talked about him a lot on the stream. This, I think, was a really good pick, too. Comes from a small school, similar to Robert Rochelle last year, who I believe was Central Arkansas, if I'm not mistaken. Not the biggest frame in Jacoby Durant, but, a great athlete, versatile, and put up good numbers at his alma mater, that is South Carolina State. So I'll go through some of that here without reading this whole thing to bore you. But if you don't know or haven't looked at this yet, I think it's value to at least kind of know. So let's go from last year. So let's see here. He started all 4. Okay, the school did not play 2020 due to COVID-19 because they were an FCS school, and that the FCS canceled like all games. But they scheduled 4 non-conference games in the spring of 2021. So if you remember, the FCS did that kind of weird hybrid season in the spring, which was kind of interesting. But started all 4 of those games, 8 tackles, 1 for loss. Second team Associated Press FCS All-American. And then in this past season, named first team AP FCS All-American. That's big. MEAC Defensive Player of the Year. Anytime a corner gets Defensive Player of the Year, that turns heads. It's always usually a pass rusher or a linebacker. Corner, Defensive Player of the Year in his conference. Led the team with 3 interceptions, 12 pass breakups, 38 tackles, 2 for loss, and a sack. Passed MAC Defensive Player of the Year, including NFL linebackers Darius Leonard and Joe Thomas, and defensive tackle Javon Hargrave. Excuse me. So, you needed a corner, and you took a corner. So they go kind of chalk, which is very un-Rams like in their first two picks, offensive line and then corner. But I love it. That's what they needed. And then, shortly after this pick, it was announced that they traded a 5th-round pick next year to get Troy Hill back. Huge. Troy Hill led the league in interceptions in 2020. Signed a nice lucrative deal with the Browns, and now he's coming home. So not only do you get a Jacoby Durant that can really challenge for that other outside spot with the young talent we already have in Robert Rochelle and David Long Jr., but now you bring Troy Hill back to alleviate any questions at the slot. So your weakness now becomes a strength. You have Jalen Ramsey, Troy Hill as your slot, and a really fun, very athletic, young battle for that outside CB2. With Robert Rochelle flashed when healthy, needs some more experience and time. David Long had his ups and downs, but, he started for a Super Bowl team. And now Jacoby Durant, who I think has a lot of upside. Obviously, the knock on him will just be that he comes from a small school. But a lot of upside, very athletic, as I said, Defensive Player of the Year in his conference. So those two back-to-back moves, fantastic. And the fact you gave up a 5th next year for Troy Hill to come home, fantastic. Round 5, maybe. I really think the Rams knocked out of the park in this draft overall with the selections they had. This might be the fan favorite, Kyron Williams, running back out of Notre Dame. I'm in the mold now. I didn't really used to be like this, but in the last 2 years, I'm kind of in the mold that you just take a running back every year at some point. Don't use a high-end pick for one, but between rounds 3 and 6, just take a running back every year. Because, no disrespect to running backs. Great people. They're obviously the position itself is so important. But we've learned that there's really not value, just talking football-wise, and once the rookie contract is up and paying a lucrative extension. It really has just never worked out in the past 5 to 10 years for any running back, really. Name one that signed a big-time deal that still remained healthy and had the same kind of impact for their teams. Christian McCaffrey, unfortunately, can't stay healthy. Ezekiel Elliott almost isn't utilized in his offense. That's just a bizarre one. Le'Veon Bell held out, never really got that deal, and obviously his career is now essentially kind of over. So it's almost better just to keep your wheelhouse, your stable, fresh. And Cam Akers, 2 years left on his deal. Darrell Henderson's on the last year of his deal, and now you add another rookie in Kyron Williams, so that if you don't want to re-sign Darrell Henderson next year, well then you just slide him up. But aside from just the contract stuff, unfortunately, Henderson and Akers haven't really been able to stay healthy. I know Akers' career is very young and bounced back last year amazingly, but you wanted more depth there. You didn't re-sign Sony Michel. I know Jake Funk too. I'm leaving him out, but I think he'll be more of that special teams body, and he was hurt also. Kyron Williams, I think, is a better prospect than what we've seen from Darrell Henderson so far. And Hendo's flashed, but unfortunately, he can't stay healthy. I've said it many, many times. I'm not going to go into depth, but unfortunately, the guy just gets banged up after 5 carries a game. He'll show you a great drive, and then he's out for the rest of a quarter because he gets something tweaked. And you can't have that from the running back, especially as your starter or RB2. So adding Kyron Williams, you get a great, great running back who had a great career at an illustrious college. Super versatile. Like I said, he was a finalist in 2021 for the Paul Hornung Award, which is for the most versatile player. Rushed for 1,000 yards, 14 touchdowns, and caught 42 passes for 359 yards. 42 passes out of the backfield. So dual threat there that can really do some good things in this offense. And what I didn't even mention yet, extremely good in pass blocking, which you have to be good at pass pro as a running back in this Sean McVay offense. Have to be good. Have to be good. So now you have Darrell Henderson's fairly good, but he just can't stay healthy. Cam Akers has been improved. He was banged up. Kyron Williams added another layer to that. So I love the Kyron Williams pick. I think he's gonna compete for the starting spot. Love Cam Akers, but flashed his first game back last year from injury and then kind of disappeared throughout the playoffs. Part of that was scheme-wise, they didn't really run the ball that much and played some tough run defenses. But yeah. So I love that pick, Kyron Williams. All right, round 6. This is my favorite pick just because it hits close to home. Quentin Lake, safety out of UCLA. We had Quentin Lake on the Bruin Bible podcast a couple weeks ago before the draft. Awesome kid. Covered him his entire career at UCLA. On a very up and down defense for UCLA, saying it nicely. He was, I wouldn't say the lone bright spot because there were, we'll get to Tito Abonia later, who's taken by the Chargers, but he was definitely one of the bright spots on that defense. Big play Q, as we've like to call him, like when you needed a big play in those big moments, like against LSU or against Oregon, he was the guy to get that big play, that big interception that was necessary. Very sure tackler, experienced. He was a JUCO transfer, came from Mater Dei. So he's got that, LA, California high school pedigree. And yeah, he was a second team All Pac-12 selection last year, tying for team lead with 3 interceptions, had 6 pass breakups, which was the most in UCLA. Also had 54 tackles and 2 for loss. Love Q. So we were really hoping that one of the UCLA or USC guys went to the Rams or Chargers, and 2 UCLA guys went. One to the Rams, one to the Chargers. Q went to the Rams. He'll be an instant special teamer. The depth there at safety, obviously, it'd be tough for him to crack into that, especially as a 6th-round pick. But so we all thought about Jordan Fuller. But now he's your star starting safety. So you never know with these things. You never know how these guys develop and how they fit into the scheme. He obviously will not be slated as the starter going into camp, but I think he has a real shot to compete there. Just due to, what injuries we've seen, the kind of up and down of Taylor Rapp. I mean, I would say as of now, your starting safeties are probably going to be Jordan Fuller and Nick Scott as of right this moment. But that can obviously change in a hurry. So yeah, I really like Quentin Lake. We've got actually some fun things planned for him. I'll tease that. So stay tuned for that. But just stay tuned. Got some fun things planned. Next pick in the, what are we in the 6th round still? Yeah, round 6. Another corner, Darian Kendrick. I won't go into too much of these late round picks, but just adding more depth to that corner room, which is what they needed. So, you already have 2 corners taken. You added Troy Hill with a trade, and you took Quentin Lake as a safety. Versatile defensive back, can line up as a corner as well. So they really are just fortifying that room that was really banged up with injuries last year. I remember there was a time in the playoffs when you signed Eric Weddle off the streets because you literally had no more safeties and your corners were banged up. Robert Rochelle missed time and Darius Williams dealt with some injuries all throughout the season, or at least nagging injuries, played through them. And so now you're just shoring that up. So Darian Kendrick played for the best defense in Georgia we've seen since probably the Miami team of 2001. And so again, don't draft the helmet, draft the player, but sometimes you go for that pedigree, and he played on a national championship Georgia team that had a dominant defense. 6th-round pick, yeah, you'll take that kid who may not have the same upside as maybe a small town school or something, or that ceiling, but you saw it happen in front of you. Like, could cover SEC receivers, could cover with the best of them, played for a school that won the national title and had a great defense. So Darian Kendrick, like that pick, fortifying it. Was 2nd team all SEC last year, 41 tackles, 2 for loss, 3 pass breakups, and led the national champion Georgia Bulldogs with 4 interceptions. And he was the Orange Bowl defensive MVP after intercepting 2 passes in the Bulldogs win over Michigan. And you get that guy in the 6th round. Fantastic pick. And then in the 7th round, we'll just kind of roll through these. Daniel Hardy, defensive end out of Montana State. High upside guy, another FCS school. But first team All Big Sky Conference, second in the FCS with 24.5 tackles for loss, tied for second nationally with 16.5 sacks. So this is a definite reminiscent of the Chris Garrett pick last year. Guy from a small school that had huge production and high ceiling. Get him in the room with, Coach Henderson and see how we can develop and get this guy on the football field. High upside, great athletic, good raw score, and the production was there. Granted at the FCS level, but sometimes that production is going to transfer over. So I like that pick. Another safety, Russ Yeast out of Kansas State, also in the 7th round. Led the Wildcats with 4 picks, 10 pass breakups, and first team All Big 12 honors. Productive player at a not a powerhouse football school necessarily, but you still play in the Big 12, and you garner, first team accolades and lead your team in specific categories. So great depth here in the 7th round. Russ Yeast, Kansas State. And with the final pick, AJ Akuri, offensive tackle out of Michigan State. 6'7", 308 pounds, big boy, and played all 13 games in 2021, 8 at right tackle, 5 at left tackle, so has that side-to-side versatility, has the size to play tackle at the next level. Obviously, they can kick him inside if they want to, but I don't think that's necessarily a need. And when you're drafting the 7th round, you're drafting for depth, but again, that Michigan State pedigree that I keep harping on it. But at this late junction in the draft, you take a flyer on a kid that played for a school that is known to pump out offensive linemen. Brian Allen went to Michigan State, drafted in the 4th round a few years back by the Rams. So those schools, Iowa, Wisconsin, Michigan, Michigan State, Ohio State, those are offensive line factories. And so if you get one in the 7th round, home run. Overall, I think this was a really good draft by the Rams. I was really pleased with it. They filled needs at offensive line, in the secondary. I mean, it was basically an all defensive draft. Plus Kyron, well, I guess you get 2 offensive linemen and a running back, and the rest, 1 D-end, edge rusher, and the rest all in the secondary. So you really just take your weaknesses and you just add a lot of bodies to those rooms that have high talent, high ceilings. Now we'll just need some coaching and development, which is the case anyway when you're drafting 3rd round and beyond. Great draft by the Rams. If I got to put a grade on it, I mean, I don't like to be a homer. We'll go A-. I really do. I think it's an A- draft. A lot of upside for all these players, and they filled all the needs that they needed to fill. And getting Troy Hill in a trade is just that cherry on top. That just, you can consider that a draft pick, I guess, because you traded next year's 5th. We'll go A-. Let me know. What are you guys thinking? We'll have a little debate in the comments below. If you're on YouTube or watching on LFB Network, just comment in the comment section, or you can hit me up on Twitter at Ryan.LAFB. If you're watching on LFB Network, we'll have that debate just listed below. So join that debate. I'll just put grade options for the Rams and select your grade. Give me some reasons why. Would love to talk with you, chat with you. Again, if you're listening on audio, you can either go to the website and do that, or go to YouTube at LAFB Network, or just hit me up on Twitter at Ryan Dyrud, LAFB. Love the conversations. So, perfect. 30 minutes. Let's transition over to the Chargers now. And, and I'll probably do some undrafted free agent talk on Friday. Maybe I'll get a guest on that we can kind of break that down a little bit, see how these teams did, and give our options as like guys that have a real shot to make the team. Because every year, one UDFA usually makes the squad for every team. We see it time and time again. So, Chargers specifically, if you want to know a great one, Austin Eckler. Here's your undrafted free agent that not only made the team, but now is a superstar in the league. All right, into the Chargers draft. They did have a 1st round pick. I don't know if you guys are sick of hearing analysis of this first round pick, so I won't spend a ton of time on it because we talked a lot all leading up to the draft, all the options the Chargers could do at round one. The safe pick, the pick I think everyone would have been happy with was who they picked, and that's Zion Johnson, offensive guard out of Boston College. There was a lot of people wanted, a speed receiver potentially go D tackle if a guy like Jordan Davis falls. You could go corner if like a Trent McDuffie or one of the big guys wasn't going to happen, but a Derek Stingley or somehow Sauce Gardner fell. That wasn't going to happen, but there was that, thought process. I threw out a couple times, maybe you go Devin Lloyd, the best linebacker in the country, to just really, shore up your linebacking room that has some question marks heading into training camp. But everyone agreed. Well, I didn't even say tackle. If any of the tackles fell, obviously that'd be great. But I think it was pretty widely consensus. Chargers fans did not want Trevor Penning. But everyone agreed that if the board didn't fall how they wanted, everyone, I think, was happy with a Zion Johnson pick. If like a Charles Cross fell or a Jameson Williams fell, I would say more fans would probably rather have one of those two guys over Zion Johnson. But I don't think anyone would admittedly say before the pick they would have been upset with Zion Johnson because he's just he's pretty much a surefire starter at guard. It was a position of need. Yes, right tackle, but so is guard. Haven't re-signed Odeabushi. I mean, that could still happen, but they haven't yet. And yeah, so there was a hole there as well. And he's just the best guard. I mean, he could have been a top 10 pick with how good of a guard, which is very hard for guards to get taken that high. It's not a premium position, at least in terms of draft capital, but nonetheless very important. I'll briefly just touch on this because I know it's a conversation we talked about on Chargers Unleashed yesterday when I was on with Dan. The need still is right tackle, right? You go into currently as it stands. I would say, I know this, Storm Norton started most of it last year. I would say as it stands right now, Trey Pipkins is probably your slated starting right tackle. He's been working with Rashawn Slater in the offseason with Duke Mayweather. And there's been talk about the improvement there. We saw it last year even in limited reps. I believe it was only in 2 games, but he did look improved. So the way this offseason has gone, I know fans don't like to hear this, but the way the offseason's gone, the way the draft went, and the way that Brandon Staley, along with obviously Tom Telesco, has put a premium at not just fortifying and improving, but vaunting the offensive line, and the fact that they didn't do anything at right tackle doesn't tell me negligence. It tells me that they have a lot of faith in Trey Pipkins. Whether you like to hear that or hate to hear that, they've proven they're going to go spend money on the offensive line. They made Corey Linsley the highest paid center in football. Drafted Rashawn Slater, 13 overall. Signed Matt Filer and Odeabushi last year. Now you get to the draft. They didn't take a tackle in free agency. They can still add a veteran presence, by the way. But they didn't overspend for a right tackle in free agency. And now you get to the draft, and they didn't take a single offensive tackle. We'll get to their 6th round pick in Salyer, who played tackle, but he's going to play guard at the NFL level. So that tells me they feel really good about who they have. And again, I know Storm Norton started mostly last year, but I would say that it's probably Trey Pipkins. Like it, love it, hate it. That's what that tells me. Because this front office with Brandon Staley in charge has not been shy about spending money. I know now Tom Telesco gets the name Coupon Tom, which is always funny to me because you have a salary cap. You can only spend so much, and as long as you're hitting close to that salary cap, you're spending all the money you have. And I know there's other reasons and whatnot, which we're not going to get into, but they've proven they want to spend on the offensive line. They went out and signed J.C. Jackson instead, which was a phenomenal signing. But if they felt so poorly about who was playing right tackle, it would have told me they would have gone and signed one of the big tackle names and then got a second-tier corner. Because they probably couldn't have done both a top-tier tackle and a top-tier corner. But they didn't do that. Haven't signed a single tackle. So, like it, love it, hate it. I think they feel pretty damn good about Trey Pipkins heading into the year, which, hey, if they feel good about it and that works out, that's what we all wanted. I know people have, for some reason, started to hate, and I know it's more of just an uneasiness, not like you hate the person, but an uneasiness. But when he was drafted, what was it now, 2 years ago, out of Sioux Falls, he was drafted as a 3-year project. That was the talk, and I know Brandon Staley wasn't here yet, but that was what was being said. 2 to 3 year project. Well, here we are. This is now his year. And if they feel good about it, well, then it ended up being a good draft pick. Obviously, we'll see when he takes the field. But I still wouldn't be shocked, though, if they do sign a cheap vet just as a camp body. Not saying that guy can't make the team, but probably you have a lot of depth right now on the offensive line, and you have a lot of versatility if, crap hits the fan and injuries happen, but you don't have a lot of true tackles. So I would not be shocked they at least bring another tackle body in to A, compete, and B, add depth, and C, just, give reps at training camp, and you're not risking injury to your starting tackles. So Zion Johnson, I got a little off that, but great pick. And here's the last thing I'll say. The offensive line, more than any other unit, defensive line you can argue too, it's a unit. And there's the old saying, you're only as good as your weakest link. But also, if you kind of spin it differently, each link makes the other link stronger. And so last year, your 2 weakest links, once Ode Abushi went down, were both on the right side. Right guard when Michael Schofield was signed, and right tackle with Storm Norton. So, yeah, the hate was more for Storm Norton, but when the guard next to him wasn't that great either, it put him more on an island. Well, now you add Zion Johnson, who is going to be a fantastic starting guard in this league. And whoever plays next to him now is going to be that much better because that link in the offensive line is that much stronger. You have more help now if you're Trey Pipkins or Storm Norton because you have a better, more talented guard next to him. It's 5 guys in the offensive line. It's all one chain link, one unit, and you made one of those links that was a weakness a lot stronger. Now we'll see how the final link looks, but it will automatically be better because the link next to it is stronger, if that's making sense. Let me know your thoughts. All right, no second round pick. We go to round 3 now. So they got their offensive line. Now, round 3, everyone was hoping for either a speed receiver or a corner. That was the talk among Chargers Twitter and fans and draft analysts too. They went safety, JT Woods. And I said this a lot yesterday if you listened to Chargers Unleashed. But so many people, I don't want to sound like I'm calling people out, but so many people, including podcasters and analysts, spend too much time looking at the 3 letters or 2 letters next to a player when he's drafted. Right? Like they see the SAF next to JT Woods and say, man, we needed a corner and we took a safety? We got Derwin James, we got Nasir Adderley, we got Alohi Gilman, we drafted Mark Webb last year. We needed a 3rd or 4th corner. Remember, I mean, corner's a need, but it wasn't like they got J.C. Jackson, Sonny Samuel Jr., and Mike Davis. I mean, you're looking at a corner 4 you need, right? Which is a need, but not a necessity in the 3rd round. But anyway, too many people look at that SAF or CB next to a player's name. And I've said many times in Brandon Staley's defense, and not even just Brandon Staley's defense, but the modern NFL defense, but specifically in Staley's defense, you don't necessarily have true CBs and safeties. You have defensive backs. I know they have their separate rooms with separate coaches, but overall, it's the defensive back room And a lot of those guys are going to be interchangeable. We don't run out of base package very often. Nickel and dime is the way defenses are run, especially if Staley defenses run. So JT Woods, you look at his career at Baylor, you look at the athleticism that he has, and that gets me excited because he can play corner. He can play in the slot. He can play nickel if need be. You drafted a pure athlete that can really play anywhere. And we saw the secondary get decimated with injuries again. And now you have a guy that can kind of play all over the place, especially in this defense. Just last year, led FBS with 6 interceptions. Tell me that's not a guy's versatile. If your safety is leading your team, 6 interceptions, 57 tackles, 4.5 for loss, and breaking up 2 other passes. Honorable mention, all conference accolades. Phenomenal athlete, like I said. So, to me, this was a great pick. Don't look at the 3 letters next to the player's name. This is a defensive back that can really play within Brandon Staley's system all over the field. I mean, if you have Sante Samuel and J.C. Jackson on the outside, Derwin James and Nasir Al-Attiyah on the back end, and now you can have Mike Davis and JT Woods kind of interchangeable on what you need back there. Plus, I think Mark Webb's really going to develop well this year. He couldn't stay healthy last year, but I still am a big Mark Webb guy too. So, JT Woods, great pick. Defensive back. We'll see where he lines up more in training camp. And obviously he's a rookie, so he's got to come in and improve himself if he's going to get playing time. But love the athletic aspect of this pick. 6 picks last year. So you want to see. And anyone that is going to play along Derwin James is just going to be better. Kind of like what I talked about with my chain link reference to the offensive line. If you're next to Derwin James, you're going to look better too. You're going to get more action, but you're going to look better, or you should look better. Round 4 now. And this pick, I feel like some people were not happy with. I was ecstatic by this pick. Isaiah Spiller out of Texas A&M. Like I said when I was talking about the Rams, every year you should draft a running back. Every year in those mid rounds. Not in the first round, not in the second round. Even third round is not bad. 4th, 5th, or 6th, every year you should take a running back. Didn't re-sign Justin Jackson. Obviously Jackson flashed, but just couldn't stay healthy, unfortunately. And last year they could never truly, whether you want to say signify or establish, RB2. It was Austin Eckler, and then every game, it was someone different. One week it was Justin Jackson. Next week, Joshua Kelly. Next week, Larry Roundtree. Which I didn't love how I did that anyway, because running back overall as a position, and especially when you're the secondary running back, you need a little bit of momentum to get going. Like, it's very hard to come in for one play after being out for a week and really muster up any kind of efficiency, and you get 3 snaps total for that game, then you're back as a healthy scratch the next week. So I didn't love that process anyway, but no guy seized it either. I mean, if they were just that even all through practices, what else can you do other than if you want to play a favorite or who gives you more juice on special teams? Well, Isaiah Spiller, I think now is your true running back too. Love Joshua Kelly. He's just such a great human being, great person. And I hope he still carves a role for himself just because I love him as a guy. I just think he's a great human being. I think he's good for LA. Obviously, he's a UCLA guy, LA guy in general. So I really hope he can still carve a role up. But just football specifically, it's going to be really tough for him and Larry Roundtree to make this team. I definitely don't think both will make it. But it's going to be tough for either to make it because, they signed some UDFAs that are some talented running backs too that we'll talk about on Friday. But Isaiah Spiller, just getting to him, 3 years at Texas A&M, almost 1,000 yards rushing every year. His first season had like 956 or something like that. So pretty damn close to 1,000. 20 plus catches every year. So a little bit of versatility. I mean, you don't need that because you have Austin Eckler, which that's what his bread and butter is, but at least you have a guy that can catch the ball out of the backfield. Bigger frame. I think Daniel Jeremiah and others had him as rated as their third best running back in this draft class. And so you get him in the fourth round in a fit that is just absolutely phenomenal. I just think it's such a good fit for him with this team, coming from a Jimbo Fisher offense that really kind of prepares these guys for the NFL. It's not your typical college offense where there's a steep learning curve. I think Isaiah Spillers is a great pick that comes in right off the bat, will have production immediately. Can be used in those fourth and short situations where we saw them run Eckler into the pile. Love Eckler, but that's probably not what you should be using him for. Now you have a bigger bodied guy in Spiller that can actually do that and do that well. Round 5, we get our guy from UCLA, Tito I always say it wrong. I've been saying Agbonia, but it's Abonia, which is way easier. I made it harder myself. So Otito Abonia, defensive tackle out of UCLA. Quick stats, full-time starter last year, setting career high with 30 tackles, 5 for loss, with 2 sacks. Very similar output to his running mate from last year, Osa Odigizua, who was drafted by the Dallas Cowboys in, I believe, the 4th round. And if Micah Parsons was not on that team, he would have been your defensive rookie of the year for the Cowboys. I'm not saying league-wide, but he had that good of a year for the Cowboys, carved out a starting role, and played alongside Otito Abonia 2 seasons ago. And now Abonia was the true kind of face of that unit this year. And I said it wasn't a good defense, but there were good players. Quentin Lake, I talked about the Rams. Abonia was another one, obviously getting drafted. Big body, good run stuffer. Can get to the quarterback, like I said, 5 touchdowns for loss, 2 sacks. But you take a weakness. Talk about the offensive line. Defensive line was a big weakness last year. You add Sebastian Joseph Day, who may be one of the most underrated nose tackles in the game. Phenomenal run stuffer. You add Ustin Johnson, who's done some good things for the Giants. Gives you great depth there. And now you take Tito Abonia, who might beat out Jerry Tillery to get some reps. Jerry Tillery option was not picked up. So, he's in a essentially contract year. So he's going to, sometimes that's a good thing. Play lights out. And hey, you want this to be a competition. So love the depth they added there. And I just think that unit has gotten stronger and stronger. There's no superstar in the D tackle room. There's no big name guy, but you have great depth. You can now rotate throughout the game to keep those legs fresh, and they all do something specifically well. And your run game or your run defense will be exponentially better, which it has to be because it was terrible last year. And Abonia adds to that. Another UCLA kid, some fun stuff planned with him for LAFB, so stay tuned for that. This, in round 6, may have been the fan favorite pick. Jeremy Salyer out of Georgia. I won't harp on the pedigree like I've been saying all episode, but comes from that Georgia pedigree, championship team, played on a solid offensive line, was the opposite tackle of Andrew Thomas, who was taken 4th overall 2 years ago. Just I think a good player that will play guard in the NFL level. 2021 was a second team All SEC, despite missing 4 games. Slid from tackle to right guard midway through last year, the national championship. So played guard on the national championship team halfway through the season. And, you just add depth now. You have Filer and Zion Johnson are your starters. And you have great depth with Brandon Hymus, who you took last year, and now Jeremy Salyer, who really, I think, just fortifies the unit. And, he's a guy that can progress and play. And who knows, with the versatility, if we see him kick out to tackle, I don't know if the size is truly there at the NFL level, but just having that versatility is helpful. And so he was probably the fan favorite pick I think a lot of people had him as like a 3rd round grade, and you get him in the 6th, and that's a home run depth piece right there from a national championship team. Great stuff there. Continuing on in the 6th, these next 2 picks are for depth here and special teams ability. Jasir Taylor, corner or defensive back out of Wake Forest, and first pick in the 7th round, defensive back Dean Leonard out of Mississippi. So, 2 kids, both around that 6 foot. I think Jasir Taylor's 5'11", Dean is 6'1", both around that 190-pound mark. So, good body size for a corner. There'll be special teams guys that, maybe can enhance a role in a dime package if they really, both very good athletes. Taylor also did some, kickoff return duty. So I think he'll be in that running to be the kick returner that the Chargers have. Obviously, they signed a great one out of Washington that gives it some versatility, some speed there. But I think in camp, we'll see that competition. I think Jasir Taylor will be involved in that. So both guys, good production. Taylor in 2021, 60 tackles, 4 for loss, 2 picks, and 5 pass breakups. He was 3rd nationally with 3 fumble recoveries. So, great production at Wake Forest. And Dean Leonard had 50 tackles and 7 pass breakups in the SEC for Ole Miss. So good production for both guys. You're getting late in this round. You're taking a flyer on. The last pick for the Chargers, they went fullback. Big dude. Xander Horvath, 6'3", 230. Reminds me of Peyton Hillis. If you remember Peyton Hillis back in the day, he was actually on the Madden cover after being traded from the Broncos to the Cleveland Browns. But yoked dude that will challenge Gabe Neighbors for that role. And, played for the Boilermakers. Had 91 carries last year, 320 yards, 3 touchdowns. Also had 17 catches out of the backfield for 108 yards. So some versatility there, but, if they're going to run some formations where they want to have a blocking lane for Eckler or Isaiah Spiller on a 3rd and short, 4th and short, you get a guy that gives you some versatility that is just a big, powerful, bruising fullback. And, I love this pick, especially in the 7th round. I know fullbacks aren't really utilized anymore in the NFL, but it's a position I think that this offense seems to want to garner and have some usage for. I feel like Neighbors was on the roster last year and we didn't see him used at all. But I can't wait to watch this competition in camp between him and Horvath. So just a big look up Peyton Hillis highlights from back in the day, and you'll see some stuff from Horvath there. So yeah, that's the Chargers draft. The last thing I got to talk about them. Well, okay, let me just at least grade the draft. I think they had a very good draft job. I go probably B+ with them. I know people were pissed that they didn't go true corner early, but hopefully I alleviated that for you by saying JT Woods is a defensive back, has the versatility. So that fills that void in my opinion. And then no speed receiver. People were very upset about that. Very upset about that. But I know he's not a fan favorite. I know that they could have upgraded, but they obviously believed in Jalen Guyton if they brought him back. And he was that speed option for them last year. There was a top 5 ranked offense in just about every category. So they had bigger needs. That became like the Twitter need, and the fan favorite need was a speed receiver. And I'm not saying if at 17 Jameson Williams was available, they wouldn't have gone that route. But for positional value throughout the draft, I think they got the positional value that they needed over a speedy receiver. It's going to, you look at a true speed receiver. Look at Jalen Guyton. Guys playing 12 to 15 snaps a game. Why use a first? Obviously, if you use a first round, that's going to play more than that. But why use a 3rd round pick on a guy who's going to play 12 snaps a game? If that. And 12 snaps meaning might get 1 throw attempt, 2 throw attempts. So is it a luxury to have? Is it something the Chargers could still look to add? Absolutely. But they feel good enough about Guyton that they brought him back, right? They feel good enough about what he was able to do and what his value is in terms of that speed option for Justin Herbert. And they went other directions. So I was not upset about that. And then what happened yesterday, again, I hope my conversation on JT Woods alleviates a little of your stress anyway. But then yesterday, they really, hopefully, everyone can just relax. they signed Bryce Callahan to a 1-year deal, played in the Vic Fangio system his whole career, played with Brandon Staley for, 1 or 2 years in Chicago and then 1 year in Denver before Staley went to LA. So there's camaraderie there. And when healthy, that's been his biggest knock, is he can't stay healthy. But when healthy, Bryce Callahan, who still is only like 27 years old, is one of the best slot nickel corners in football. So you have now Asante Samuel Jr. and J.C. Jackson on the outsides. You got Bryce Callahan in your slot, and then you got Michael Davis and J.T. Woods, who's versatile, coming in as your CB 4 and 5. That, my friends, may be the best secondary, I didn't even talk about Derwin James, in football. It's damn close. So you took a weakness 2 months ago, signed J.C. Jackson and Bryce Callahan, and drafted J.T. Woods, and you turn it into a massive strength, in my opinion. Massive strength. And just watch how Staley and Ronaldo Hill and their coaching staff really transforms this secondary into an elite unit. And they've also shored up the run defense by signing 2D tackles, drafting another, Otito Abonia. Now and obviously got better on the edge with Khalil Mack. Depth is a bit of a concern there. Definitely think they'll bring another body in because they didn't address depth edge in the draft either. But again, I think they got good depth where they needed it. But that will be something to look for. And the middle linebacker right now is the true question mark. Because you're rolling into this season with Drew Tranquill and Kenneth Murray, which again, most packages will only going to roll with one linebacker, I would say. Especially with how much they just add on the secondary. They're going to lean into that strength. So that will be the one position to really watch this training camp. Like I said, I think Trey Pipkins is your starting tackle as of now, but they bring in another camp body, veteran. And then so backer is going to be who really seizes that when there's one backer sets. Is it Tranquill? Is it Murray? And when they're both in, how are they able to work within the confines of the defense, and is the improvement there? Tranquill's always played pretty well. It's just been health for him. Kenneth Murray's been very up and down. Thought he had a decent rookie year, big fallback last year, but that was learning a brand new scheme. They switched him positions, then switched him back. There was a lot of chaos there for a young player. I know there's a lot of hate and vitriol for Kenneth Murray, and I'm not here defending saying he played great, but he's still a young player going into year 3, second year in this new system. Let's cut the kid some slack, see if he can learn it and play it at an elite level. Obviously, the coaching staff has some faith, considering they did not draft or sign or re-sign any middle linebackers. So let's trust the staff for now, and we can make our judgments come week 1, right? But good draft, B+. The addition of Bryce Callahan brings it to an A for me. Again, call me a homer, call me too much, maybe not even glass half full, just glass full all the time. But I really like what they did. Love Isaiah Spiller. Love I love JT Woods. Obviously, Zion Johnson's a home run. Overall, good stuff. USC, 3 total players taken. Obviously, talked about Drake London. Keontae Ingram gets drafted. And Drake Jackson, unfortunately, goes to the Niners. Because I think Drake Jackson's going to be very good. I think he was slept on in this draft process. Went pretty high in that second round. And unfortunately, just goes to the Niners. So now the Rams have to face him. Bruins did they have 6 drafted? I'm trying to count in my head right now. They for sure had 5 drafted. They had a very good draft day. Sean Ryan, tackle, goes to Green Bay, which I think is a great spot for him. I mean, David Bakhtiari was a mid-round pick, I think 4th-round pick, and he's become one of the top-tier tackles in football. Sean Ryan goes in the 3rd to Green Bay and can immediately kind of be your right tackle. So you have Bakhtiari and Sean Ryan next year, I think, will be very fitting tackles in that offense with Aaron Rodgers. Greg Dolcich goes to the Broncos. great fit there after trading Noah Fant. I think he is a super versatile. We've talked about him a bunch. If you watch the Bruin Bible, our guy Will Decker is like absolutely loves Greg Dolcich. But a true inline tight end that can block, but also a great receiving tight end as he played receiver and switched over to tight end. So the Broncos get a guy. I know they have Albert Okwuegbunam, but very different skill set here, I think, with Greg Dolcich, and kind of fills that void that was left when they traded Noah Fant in that Russell Wilson deal. Kyle Phillips gets drafted by the. Did he go to the Ravens? I'm drawing a blank now where he went. No, I don't think it was the Ravens. It'll come to me. But Kyle Phillips gets drafted later than expected, but he's going to make that team very happy because if you've listened to my show, you know how high I am on Kyle Phillips. Just a very, very good cerebral player. Great hands, great route runner, faster than he looks, can run away from guys when needed. So I love Kyle Phillips. Obviously, I talked about the guys that ran the Tartar Sticks. That takes us to 5, right? I think I'm not missing anyone. I think it was 5. Oh, no, Britton Brown, drafted by the Raiders. So there's your 6th. Britton Brown, who kind of split time with, obviously, Zach Charbonnet's the known commodity in the backfield, but Britton Brown, very good 2 years of production for UCLA after transferring from Duke. Last year, or 2 years ago, I should say, when it was him and Demetric Felton, he was the big bruiser. Felton was the speed guy. And then this year, him and Chardonnay have kind of similar builds, but Brown was still very productive, having to be in the shadow, if you will, of Zach Charbonnet. So he goes to the Raiders, who the Chargers will have to face, but, hats off to those Bruins, 6 of them getting drafted this year. That's all the time I got. Rolled through all these draft picks. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Remember, the show is brought to you by Bet Online. Promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, for a 50% welcome bonus. Hit me up on Twitter at Ryan Dyrud, LAFB. Make sure to subscribe to the show on any podcast platform you listen to, or on YouTube, or just go to LAFBnetwork.com, where we have every episode of every show right there for you to consume. It's the easiest way to find everything because it's all right in front of you. We're actually doing some site redesign stuff this week, so it will look a little different, look a little cleaner, load a little faster. I'm kind of excited about it. So thank you all for tuning in. Enjoy your Wednesday. I'll be back on Friday. We'll talk to you then.